Oi, oi, it's your boy, the Giorgio Petrosyan of Topsoil Erosion, Jack Slack, and it's the Jack Slack podcast coming at you on Monday, the 18th of October, and we're talking about some fights, what happened. Yeah, I mean, that's the best way you can describe them, fights that happened. Yeah, I mean, the UFC phoned it in, Bellator is never good. The one interesting thing that did happen this weekend was, well, one. Giorgio Petrosyan fought Superbon, whose name means super good in French, and got knocked out, which is the first time since Andy Risti, and the second time ever, I believe. It was, it was... You never want to say these things are due, but in terms of a career spent in combat sports, where you've had like 100 fights... Yeah, 100... Hang on, how many fights has he had? Let's check. Hold on. He's had 111 fights, and he's been knocked out twice. Pretty fucking astonishing. I mean, that's how you get the reputation as a defensive genius. But I hadn't seen him fight in a little while. He did fight in both 2021 and 2020. He hasn't... I'm sure he was set back by the global pandemic, but he wasn't completely inactive. He fought at his own event in Italy, and then he fought David Kyria. Again, I think. Have they fought before? They must have fought before. Back in Glory. No, apparently they hadn't. Oh, hold on. Oh, yes, they had. Glory 3, Rome. Very interesting fight. Again, like I said, I haven't seen him fight in a while. I saw him fight Pech Moricott both times, and then Joe Natawat, rather. Didn't see the Sami Sana fight. And then he's fought 2 fights since. I think the thing that most people picked up on immediately was that he wasn't leading the dance. He wasn't clipping off offense, moving off, and then having the guy follow him. Superbon, he seemed to want to sort of walk him down. He came in behind the light lead leg. He does it sometimes. He will normally start around and use the teep a couple of times, but a lot of what Giorgio Petrosyan does is clip off a couple of punches with his hands, pivot offline, or push the opponent away, or move in and clinch. He's very good at pop, and then whenever you try and throw something back, he'll cut you off. Whether that's with the teep, whether that's with a step and pivot, whether that's with a physical shove. Against Robin van Roosmalen, Robin van Roosmalen's whole game is cover up and throw combinations back. And Robin van Roosmalen couldn't hit him with a handful of rice because he'd throw one punch hoping to land on the guard and then 2 more. And the second and third wouldn't be anywhere near Petrosyan because he'd either be too far away from being pushed or teeped or pivoted out on, or Petrosyan would step in and tie him up, or just smother him and then push him out again. And that's Petrosyan at his best, but in this one he seemed to be working more aggressively, and it seemed to work to his detriment. Superbon was doing a lot of hitting off the same side, rear side hitting. When we talk about open guard matchups or open stance matchups, Southpaw versus Orthodox, Superbon was the Orthodox fighter here. Petrosyan is normally, always the southpaw. Normally the exotic element in the matchup is what I was going to say. But Petrosyan will step down the outside of your lead leg and pivot out over and over again. He'll hit you with intercepting knees coming in. And he'll pop off 1s and 2s, the odd lean back right hook. But I really liked what Superbon was doing. He was throwing like a slappy right hand and then a right kick behind it, a high kick or a body kick. Or he'd throw a right body kick or head kick and then land a good right punch off it. Basic stuff, but rather than trying to traditionally combination punch or whatever, with someone who's, firstly developed a reputation for being defensively brilliant, but also very concerned with being defensively perfect in a fight, you want to tap and try and make difficult things for them to catch both of, rather than try and build big combinations. And then he was able to dig in the rear leg push kick. He was digging in. He hit Petrosyan with a couple of really good intercepting knees as he stepped in, which should tell you more about how Petrosyan was fighting, because normally Petrosyan is backing up and letting the other guy come to him, and then he'll step in with the intercepting knee and push him off or pivot offline. But yeah, Superbon was very much drawing him forward onto the blows and just picking at him. And then it was a right, right body kick, left hook, right high kick. And the high kick on the close of the combination, which is something that Superbon had been doing, throwing the right hand and then the right high kick behind it, or, just ending not even combinations, but ending attacks with high kicks. We really like. There's quite a few guys doing it, but Ilias Anahatchi's a good example. Shit, I had another one on the tip of my tongue and I've forgotten it. But what I like about ending attacks with a high kick is that against guys who are parrying punches or pulling their head back, you in a traditional boxing exchange, if someone pulls their head back out of the exchange, it's bad because you can follow down the center with a straight, or they're on train tracks. You can chase them back, but there's only so far you can do that because your arms aren't. Your arms are only as long as your arms are. But with the high kick, a guy can lean back far enough so that your right straight falls short and still get hit in the head with the high kick, which is useful. And also, guys tend to, if you get a good collision or a good little combination going, guys still exit backwards while they're parrying. While they're dealing with the punch, they'll be moving backwards, and there's a big opening down that side of their body where their hands come forward. So as I mentioned, Ilias Anahachi does a great job. He'll bounce around the ring, and then he'll hit them with an intercepting knee to the body, punch them in the face off the same side, or push their face back off the same side, and then they'll either try and parry the punch or just push his hand off their face, and he'll kick him over the top of that arm. But yeah, this high kick, he'd been dinged by a good left hook just before, but he was stepping backwards, his arms weren't in the way, got a high kick, basically foot across the jaw, and he went down like a board, completely stiff. And he was apparently stretchered out of the arena. It was not pretty as the knockouts go. It was pretty, the actual knockout, but when you're thinking about the guy on the floor, which you don't like to do too much in the fight game, it was rough. But he is almost 40. How old is he now? Oh, he's 35. But he's been doing this forever. And Superbon is very, very good. There's no getting around that either. Superbon is fucking excellent, which is why this fight was huge when they put it together. Superbon himself's actually 31, so he's not too much younger. But for Superbon, that's Sitichai followed by Georgia Petrosyan, which is an amazing pair of names to have on your record. And this really does hammer home how one has just dominated this weight class in terms of striking. You got Georgia Petrosyan, who was Glory's big get, and then Bellator kickboxing stole him, and then he couldn't fight enough in Bellator kickboxing, so he went to one. Sitichai was the Glory champion for ages. You got Nicky Holzken over there, but I think he's fighting at welterweight. You got so many good guys in those. I don't want to say lower, but middle weight classes, because K1 still has a lot of the lower weight talent in the world. But Glory's hemorrhaging fighters to either MMA or one. It's really weird because someone said to me, when I was tweeting about this fight, someone said to me, I'm confused. Why are they having a kickboxing match in a circular cage? And I was like, well, despite having about 1% of the world's best MMA fighters and all the best kickboxers and Nak Muay in the world in this division, they're still trying to sell themselves as an MMA organization. And I think it's mainly due to MMA trending better on Google and shit. They're so... It's a marketing firm with good fights that they put on from time to time. But their striking divisions are so shit hot. They had some really good fights on this one that I haven't finished watching, actually. Marek Grigorian was in the co-main event. He fought Andy Sauer. This was Andy Sauer's retirement fight. Andy Sauer's been doing this forever too. Andy Sauer was the old man of the division when Georgia Petrosyan beat him in K1 Max. So he's been around a long time. But David Kiria was on, knocked out a lad called Enrico Kell. Sami Sana lost to Chungus Alazoz. His name's actually Chingiz, but I prefer Chungus. And then Sitichai was on the card as well. So really shit-hot kickboxers all the way down. And then their next event is also just kickboxers and then a couple of MMA fights between people you've never heard of. But yeah, if you want to watch something from the weekend to wash the taste of the UFC out of your mouth, I would recommend that one card. Don't need to do a career eulogy for Georgia Petrosyan just yet. I think he's good enough that he can just hang around forever, basically. he can keep putting on events in Milan. He's literally booked for one in a few weeks' time, first week of December, against Kambak Kadov, who I don't know, but that's what he does in Italy. He goes to Milan, he fights in front of his home crowd, fights someone that you don't really know, but always does. That's where he gets his stoppages, because against world-class opposition, a lot of what Georgia Petrosyan does is frustrate and stop them, from doing what they want. And then he'll pad up his record with knockouts over people like Atsushi Tamafusa at Petrosyan Mania. But big up the Superbon, because, to knock out one of the Well, to defensively fluster, one of the best to ever do it defensively. Very impressive. So then the thing you really want to hear about, I'm sure, is Norma Dumont versus Aspen Ladd. And if you weren't on the Boycast, I said Norma Dumont, I think, has a lot of potential, but she keeps losing. Or when she wins, she doesn't do enough to win. Like, she's got about 6 wins on her professional record, 1 split decision and 1 majority decision. And a majority decision is like the definition of you almost didn't convince everyone that you won. Like, you know, you almost got a draw because you didn't do enough. But we talked about her satyr-like build. I didn't sing the song, but no, I said she's got some fucking snap on her kicks, which you didn't see an awful lot of in this fight compared to jabs, which she was throwing loads of. Her head movement is crap, but Aspen Ladd's was even worse, and Aspen wasn't throwing anything back. So Aspen Ladd's corner in this one was amazing. It was like someone just asked me to corner someone who I don't know or like on the night. You know, it's just, I mean, he was one step short of when she came back to her corner, already sitting on her stool and emery boarding his fingernails. Just be like, oh yeah, that's the best you got, you know. But yeah, he was fantastic. Round 3, he's just like, I don't know what you're doing. Do you want to explain to me what you're doing? But it was also just a mixed message from their corner, because this dude, her main corner, is going lead with the rear hand, and I presume that's because he wanted her to get in range to fucking hit and clinch. And if you're getting jabbed up, don't try and jab back with the person. Try and either slip the jab and throw the right hand across the top, or take the jab and throw the right hand across the top, you know, and get into a mauling sort of exchange. But at the same time, like this, he's going, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. Lead with the rear hand, throw some fucking punches, no jabs, just power punches. And at the same time, the other dude in her corner is behind her wearing a mask, nodding, and then going, double jab, stick to the double jab. It's completely mixed messages. You know, I'm the first person to say the double jab is probably his answer here, but the double jab, you know, there's double jabbing for a purpose, and then there's the double jab only works if the opponent moves back when you jab. If they don't respect your jab at all, there's no point in their move. Well, they won't move back, so you're just sort of flopping your hand out there and walking into range, probably going to get cracked. But largely this was trash. Aspen Ladd's takedowns did not look good. Her striking looked worse than last time, because against Yana Kunitskaya, you know, there was an awful lot of criticism of Ladd after this fight, saying like she needs to be a weight bully, she needs to be bigger. Yana Kunitskaya is fucking huge for bantamweight, and Yana Kunitskaya beat her up for 2 rounds or whatever it was, but Aspen Ladd knocked her out in the 3rd with a good left hook. But you know, she was game in that fight, and she pulled herself back into that fight. And you know, it did matter that she wasn't much bigger than her opponent, but it didn't matter all that much. In this one, she just looked completely lost. And I think Norma Dumont, it was classy of her afterwards to say, like, I just want to tell Aspen Ladd she felt strong. You know, she's not too weak to compete at this, or too small to compete at this weight class. She should stick here. And, you know, I think that is the lesson that Aspen Ladd should take away. Like, don't, you know, you can win a fight on weight cutting, but it's a way that people don't really respect, and it's also gonna kill you probably at some point. She needs to do what Aldo did, you know. Just Aldo used to have a horrible weight cut, and he was having all kinds of kidney problems and stuff. And then, you know, when he said he was going down to bantamweight, we all went, "Oh, that's fucking a horrible idea. What are you doing, Jose Aldo?" And then he basically, through commitment to turning his life around and his habits, a guy who was already in great shape managed to slim down and comfortably make the weight. You know, the first time he was on the scale at bantamweight, we were like, oh God, he's going to die. And then he came out and put on one of the best showings of his recent career against Marlon Moraes, and didn't gas and just looked great. And he's made it even easier each time since then. So for Aspen Ladd, you know, it's great being strong, but you can afford to drop some muscle mass. You can afford to drop some mass if you want to try and compete at 135, or stay at 145. You know, it's just so many guys find that they can take a shot better, that they can move better, that they don't. It's a whole thing that you don't even have to think about anymore, where the massive cut was everything and the fight was in the background. You know, now you only have to do like a small cut, and you feel healthy and you're alert throughout the entire time. You know, I watched her weigh in for this one, and I was like, oh, good, she's not shaking on the scale. That's the first time in like 3 I haven't seen that. You know, it doesn't help that she reacts really badly to her cut. You know, there are guys who can be almost dying on the scale. Like if you watch, early Conor McGregor in the UFC, or his featherweight run in the UFC, where he's, to be fair to him, he used to get off the scale and then do an interview, and no one else was doing that. They were all like, fuck this, I'm off to chug water and eat huge amounts of pasta. But Conor McGregor would get off the scale and he'd look like a heroin addict. He looked like someone they picked up on the streets of Dublin to interview about like the state of the nation. And I think like the other thing was that this fight was absolutely, I mean, she looked terrible in this fight, Aspen Ladd. Just the game plan was terrible. The head movement where she's just sort of head banging on the spot and just walking forwards and not really committing to anything. Like there was a very obvious, it was like, oh, I don't want to get hit back. And you're like, well, you're getting jabbed up right now. You know, it is a thing. People are like, well, I'm getting jabbed up now, but if I don't really like rush her, I can't get hit by an errant right hand and, you know, knocked out. But, you know, almost no low kicking, you know, which should have been an issue. It should have been an idea if she was trying to cut off Dumont and slow her movement. You know, everyone and their mum knows that the calf kick is a legit fight-ending technique or fight-changing technique, and it doesn't take a lot of skill. Defending them, you know, if you're trying to calf kick someone who can actually defend them, which is almost no one, that takes a lot of skill. But, you know, she should have been throwing some fucking calf kicks on the end of those double jabs that weren't doing anything. But her takedowns were worthless. She got 0 out of 5, but Norma Dumont took her down, and then Aspen Ladd moved back to butterfly guard, sat up and hit a beautiful butterfly guard sweep. I think she had double overhooks, which is even more impressive. Hit a beautiful butterfly sweep into top position and started hitting for the end of the round, and that was the end of round 4. And that was actually like a little reminder that, oh yeah, she's quite good at some things, but she was doing the fucking ki-ing, trying to get the referee to be sexist and stop the fight. I'm calling it now. Like anyone who stops a fight because the chick is screaming, or any chick is screaming, is sexist in my book. And you know, I've authority on sexism in MMA. Apparently, if you read enough of my YouTube comments, especially on Valentina episodes. But ultimately, yeah, Norma Dumont won by still not doing enough. I think she got a 49-48 on one scorecard, which is absurd, but also, you know, fucking do more, fucking throw some punches, throw some kicks. You know, it was because I was watching her and I was going, I don't think she's actually got that much better. Because I said last time I think she's got good potential, but every time she hangs her head out there, the other person hits her in the face clean, and she'll try like a pull counter or whatever. You know, when she fought Megan Anderson, the problem was that she was coming in with her head literally in stationary on a line, coming towards Anderson. Anderson jabbed her up in the first round by accident, almost, and then knocked her down with the right hand because her head never moved. You know, Anderson's eyes were closed when she threw the right hand. But yeah, so I don't think she improved anything. I think she just, you know, it never got past that first stage of the fight where she was like, oh, this jab's working and the other girl isn't doing anything. And it never progressed from there. And I suppose never getting past the first stage links in with Manon Fiorot, who people were like, when I was slagging off this card, which I'm so glad everyone else got on board with, because sometimes I slag off these cards and I'm like, am I just a stickler? But this really was dreadful. But people were like, at least Manon Fiorot's on there. You'll love her, Jack. And I had seen her before, I think, but I watched her this time and I was like, this is what I was supposed to be excited for? And then I read the comments on like the Reddit afterwards, and people are going mad about her. They're like, damn, she looks unstoppable. She's like Caitlin Chikagian, but with power. She's like Caitlin Chikagian, but good. And like, she had an opponent who was doing nothing and never changed the thing she was doing. Like, granted, the thing she was doing was winning her the fight, but she wasn't landing the punches. She's just doing 1, 2, 3 against this girl's forearms and then a side kick when she walked in. And the other girl was doing useless shit too. You know, she was just taunting, just hitting the directional buttons on SmackDown. But, you know, you're not going to... I mean, she was sort of Joshua Clottey versus Manny Pacquiao-ing it, where she was getting a moral victory out of just walking forward and being like, ha ha ha, can't really hit me that well. But yeah, I mean, everyone... You don't need me to point out that she didn't hit the fucking body. You know, the sidekicks were going in perfect, but they're not like... I mean, if you couldn't catch someone good, maybe you'll win someone with a sidekick, you can wear someone down with sidekicks. But like, just instead of the 1, 2, 3 to the guard, throw the 1 and then 2 to the body and then 3 upstairs, or 1, 2 to the head and then 3 to the body. Like, it's not rocket science, but it would get you a convincing stoppage, probably, against an opponent who was doing nothing. And the ish-ishing just drives me fucking mental. I want to say, but there was good stuff on here, but I don't think there was. I mean, Andrei Arlovski beat Carlos Felipe, and people were like, yes, Andre, let's talk about how long this guy's been going and how, his amazing longevity. But it was still a crap fight, so I'm not going to talk about it. But, I do like Arlovski. I mean, it's crazy how hot young Arlovski was. And, like, in the last fight of his, was it the last fight or the one before? But it's suddenly his nose is just all over his face. Oh, it might have been Aspinall. But yeah, I mean, mad respect for hanging around as long as you have, but equally, every time he fights and wins, it just reminds you how useless heavyweight MMA is. But good stuff. Let's get happy, Jack. Come on, happy. Slap my face. Right. Jim Miller. Oh, it's always good to see Jim Miller get a win. No, now I'm going to turn a corner on like old men fighting. I feel like Arlovski, get the fuck out. Jim Miller, most fights ever. Yeah, no, he can stay. No, I love Jim Miller. This was... I didn't actually look at Gonzalez's record beforehand. People did say that he was just sort of like some jobber brought in. Like nothing special. But the way they were selling it on the commentary, I was like, is this a repeat of Charles Oliveira versus Jim Miller? Here's a young upstart, Jim Miller, old man. He was an old man in the sport by the time that Charles Oliveira was coming up, and then comes out and breaks his leg in half. But this one was interesting because Gonzalez, it just shows like how badly some people react if they haven't seen something before or if they're having trouble with something. Because the early going of the first round was fairly even, and then they got back to the center of the cage. Gonzalez threw like a right straight or whatever at the southpaw Jim Miller. And Miller came back over the top with the left hand. And was it Soriano versus... it was Soriano versus Dusko Todorovic in the UFC... What are they? Middleweights? Yeah, middleweight division. That was back in January. And I was excited about that fight because I said, like, Todorovic is really good with the straight hitting and the kicking and the combinations. But Soriano is a southpaw who just wings the left, like, around. You can't really throw a right... a right hook horizontal, parallel to the floor, against someone who's in the same stance as you. If you're both orthodox and you throw a right hook like that, because it's just going to hit their shoulder. But you could do those big wide swings as a southpaw against an orthodox fighter with your left hand. And Soriano just does that after every punching exchange. So in the lead up to that fight, I was like, I expect Todorovic to beat him to the punch almost always. But I think where this fight's going to be decided is how Todorovic moves after he's landed his punches. Because every time Soriano is still going to be there, swinging back the left hand. And literally when the fight happened, it was Todorovic all over him. And then the left hand just kept swinging in from the side after every successful Todorovic combination. And that's how Miller got him here. He threw a punch, he got hit with that left hand. And then he was like, oh, weird. And then he threw another punch and got hit again with the same left hand. Like Bisping said, that's 3 times in a row. And he just had no idea how to deal with it. And there are a few ways you can deal with it. You can duck into a clinch. You can weave out underneath the arm. You can get your hand back quick enough and have a high guard. You could make sure you're moving to the left when you throw your right hand, so you're going past their lead leg and taking that angle. But, ultimately he didn't know what to do, and he just sort of went, oh, okay, reset and throw a punch again, and got caught with the same counter again. And then in the second round, he comes out and he takes a run up and throws a fucking inside crescent kick, a Gaku Morishigeri, whatever you want to call it, the Cyril Gane kick, and immediately gets starched with the left hand. It was like, you were getting clipped with that left hand when you were doing, normal shit, and now you're going to come out and run at Jim Miller and throw an inside crescent kick. I'm glad he starched him, because like, if I'm Jim Miller, I'm offended that someone came out and did a run-up inside crescent kick at me. In the second round, after I dropped them at the end of the first. But no, good for Jim Miller. I think it's great what he's doing. I think it's great that he's still around. When he loses, he doesn't tend to get hurt too badly, with the exceptions of things like the Hooker fight. But he really is just a testament to, one, being tough and strong, but also just to have good, rounded basics and keep improving them. There's nothing he does that's like really out there or weird. He just does good, basic MMA to a level where he's still beating these guys who are coming in fresh. And he has Lyme disease, so even more respect to him for being able to do this and fucking making weight. Like Aspinall had, I had a period. Jim Miller has Lyme disease, mate. And Actually, there was news about that. They said they've got either a vaccine or a possible cure for people who have it. I was reading the headline on Twitter, and I immediately thought, I'm going to tweet this to Jim Miller. Fucking Dominic Cummings got involved in MMA today, decided to tweet at Nate Diaz, being like, oh, don't sign the deal, Nate. Finish your UFC run and they'll pay you more. You can go to Triller. You're like, what? If you don't know who Dominic Cummings is, there was a big scandal here called Cumgate. It's great. But basically, he was the Tories' spin. I know, he was a sort of spin doctor, but then he ended up as like Boris Johnson's chief advisor. He was a big part of Vote Leave and all that shit, but mainly he was just like a dude who was in Boris Johnson's ear the entire time. And while they were making everyone stay indoors, he drove to fucking Castle to have a day out. And then when they got confronted on it, he was like, my eyes weren't feeling very good, so I was testing them by driving my car with my son in the back. It was proper weird. But anyway, yeah, he was tweeting about Nate Diaz for some reason. So I just chimed in with, this man is the authority on shit deals. Do you know what? It's always lovely when MMA and like slagging off the Tories intersect. It's happened a couple of times. I got to have a go at Ian Duncan Smith once, and he blocked me for that. That was lovely. But I don't want to be one of those people who brags about getting blocked, but it's always nice to have like the top reply on an actual famous politician's tweets, especially if it's just like, shut the fuck up, Ian. Side note, America, well done for managing to make paternity leave into a culture war issue. You know, how dumb do you have to be to fall for the old, we shouldn't have days off? I mean, you already work more days a year than like any other first world country, and you're willing to give them up to look manly. Anyway, sorry, enough about Dom Cum. Really just fill in time because this card was so bad, and the Bellator card was bad as well. Bruno Silva versus Andrew Sanchez was weird because Andrew Sanchez dominated him in the wrestling, but Bruno Silva didn't even do anything to get up most of the time. Just ended up on his back getting beaten up. And then he ended up knocking him out. Like, Andrew Sanchez came out for the third round, very clearly gassed, kicked him in the dick for like the fourth time and got a point deduction. And then Bruno Silva did actually the right thing, and instead of just pouring it on his guard along the fence, because Andrew Sanchez was backing onto the fence and standing still with his guard high, he immediately started pounding the body, which is the correct thing to do, Manon Fiorot. If you have someone who's just covering up, hit the fucking body, because it's going to make a difference. It's going to hurt them. And if their hands come down, you can hit them in the head, which is what you wanted to do in the first place. There's almost no scenario where committing to body shots is a bad thing. Except when you're like sitting on top of someone from side control and you're hammer fisting their body. That's probably not. But then that's not really committing to a body shot. That's just, trying to look like you're not stalling. Nate Landwehr versus Ludovic Klein. Sorry. Do you know what? I think I've turned the corner on Nate Landwehr. He's so funny. Like, his previous fights, he was like, blood, sweat, and a damn good fight. I can't even do his fucking voice. I can't do a lot of voices, but I do try. Shit, it was an oversight not having the dueling banjos ding 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 on the soundboard. Instead, it's just going to have to be Nate Landwehr. I loved this. And he looked sharper than usual. His game is at his best when he's just sort of in people's faces, because he's got slow hands, like sweat dripping down your dirty laundry. I don't even know if those are the actual words, but when he gets like a collar tie, he can start hammering people. I'm doing this stuff on Petrosyan at the moment, and holding and hitting is so much better than just hitting for the most part. Like, if you're losing a clean kickboxing contest, grab a hold of someone and start hammering them, And he did. He was doing really well. Every time he got Klein to the cage, he'd just grab a hold of him, batter him, hit him with good knees to the body. And then he threatened the Anaconda choke in the second round, and Ludovic Klein got out of it. And then he did it again in the third round and got the choke. It was a really impressive performance. And honestly, I quite liked his post-fight interview. He came off really well. Shy wink to camera and being like, I've still got hands. I just had to do the submission one time. No, really funny. And just the worst hair in MMA. And I think it's actually a good thing. You should lean into it. Just absolutely brutal hairline. Almost Bobby Charlton-esque. What else was good? Basically only Dana Batgerel. How many Mongolians have we got in the UFC now? Because I feel like there's a couple of Mongolian guys I really like. But yeah, Brandon Davis was back, and remember Brandon Davis got the better of Zabit on the feet for a lot of their fight. Really was let down by Zabit just taking him down and then holding his wrists and beating the shit out of him. But yeah, I mean, he gave Zabit some trouble with his jab and his inside low kicks and things, just being obnoxious, basically. And Danabad Garel was having none of it. Just a beautiful overhand across the top. The old cross counter, really what Aspen Ladd should have been looking for the entire time, what her coaches were calling for. Slip inside the jab, throw the right hand across the top. Worst case scenario, you get jabbed and you still have a right hand winging across the top that might hit them. And you can close in while you're trying to do it. But yeah, brutal knockdown. I thought good reffing letting him work out what he's going to do because he was still moving. I felt that way about the... well, actually, I thought the Corey Anderson versus Bader stoppage was actually a little bit early. Sorry, switching over to Bellator now. It's all right, we're only going to talk about 2 fights from it. But Corey Anderson, firstly, he put Bader on the back foot, which I really liked because a lot of what Corey Anderson does is just do like enough, or has been. And in this one, he actually came out and put Bader on the back foot. Bader has a bit of a reputation for being chinny, so great thing to do, and easily flustered too. Like he'll give up on his striking and just dive wildly after your legs. But Anderson backed him up and then and hit him a few times, and then he backed off. Bader came in to jab. It's another great thing is like if you get in his face, he's not gonna set up that nice level change to left hook that he did against Fedor. So Bader like pumps out a jab sort of panickedly, and Corey Anderson crosses across the top with his right hand, knocks him down. I thought the stoppage was a little bit early, but yeah, I mean impressive performance from Anderson. And Vadim Nemkov got sat down in his stance by Anglicus. And, this is what we're always talking about. If you're in your stance and you get hit, if he'd been floating around like, or stumbling around like Deontay Wilder, when he's between punches, we talk about how like your stance is there to catch you and Deontay Wilder's feet are all over the place. So when he gets hit, he almost always falls or stumbles and looks terrible. Vadim Nemkov got hit on the chin, collapsed into his stance like a controlled implosion, and just bounced back up because his legs were underneath him. But he basically just put it on Anglicus after that. I mean, Anglicus wasn't very... he's apparently they're number 5 in Bellator now, but he didn't get into the tournament originally because it was like their top 8 guys, and he wasn't expected to win this one, but he did. He gave a good account of himself, but most of it was just Nemkov taking him down, beating him up from top position. The last round, Anglicus, he's in closed guard. Nemkov takes him down into closed guard. He opens his guard up and he tries to upkick him illegally from the floor. Misses, gets warned. But by missing the illegal upkick, he's given Nemkov the guard pass. So Nemkov starts working on Americana. Anglicus bridges and starts to get his free hand across to pull his the hand that's being attacked into his body with both hands. And Nemkov switches to the Kimura on the top arm. Very Fedor in rings Kimura, or Fedor versus Mark Hunt. Yeah, I mean, it was a cool finish. It reminded me of one of the ones I was watching at the Nogi Worlds. There's a lad, I can't remember his name, but he's like the Roosterweight champion in Nogi now. And he was working, he got to like a mounted crucifix on a guy, and he was trying to do an Americana with his legs on one arm and an Americana with his arms on the other arm. It's really funny watching it happen. I don't think he got the submission with either of them, but he was constantly attacking the guy. It was very cool. And that dude, like, he's a roosterweight, but he enters the absolute, which is, unless you're Marcelo Garcia and you're basically a brick of muscle, you're just asking to be injured because it's just going to be big dudes leaning into you the entire time. But yeah, good finish from Nemkov. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, they're selling it's very weird because like the entire time that Nemkov's fighting, they're just talking about Fedor. Why, Big John? I don't need 25 minutes of you sort of remembering Fedor's career. And the other thing is that they're selling this Fedor fight next week against Tim Johnson. And I don't know if you know, but we're in a Simpsons situation with Fedor where he's now been bad for longer than he was good. Fedor's peak ends in like 2007. That's when he starts to slow down, look very obviously not Fedor-esque. Scrapes past like Arlovsky and Brett Rogers, finally loses to Verdum, Bigfoot Silva, and so on and so forth. And it has been like, well, when was 2007? So it's been a long time, like 14 years since he was good, or since he was very good. And he won the Pride Belt in 2003, so it's from 2003 to like 2007. Yeah, real Simpsons situation there. But we'll talk about it on the Boycast anyway, because there's not an awful lot going on. And Bellator are like, this is our biggest event ever. We're going to Moscow. We got the Moscow commissioner of MMA in the main event. Yeah. Well, I rambled a good bit out of that. I got some good content out of that, I think. Let's do a quick question, then we'll get out of here for this week. Question from Lost Prince. Dearest Philosopher Jack, do people who practice jiu-jitsu have, like, cult-like vibes? Or am I just tripping? I'm from a place where only a few practice martial arts, and most of my knowledge is from social media. I have other stupid questions, brackets like, isn't tea just hot leaf juice? But this one has been bugging me. Cheers from East Africa, Tanzania. I know where Tanzania is. It used to be Tanganyika. We grew groundnuts there. Actually, wasn't it a German colony? I forget. But yes, jiu-jitsu is very culty, especially like Gracie sort of jiu-jitsu. Try and find gyms that are just sort of chill and don't care what gi you wear and aren't going to try and sell you shit and don't have like a dojo kun on the wall and all that stuff. Just find places where people are like, yeah, we're here to grapple. I'm not here to teach you to be a better person or whatever. I was trying to buy a new rash guard because my old reliable black one has finally got a rip in it. But I looked at, I love Scramble and Newaza, but I'm looking at for plain black rash guards. And literally everywhere is now just like a Marvel rash guard shop. I, as a grown man, want to turn up in my Iron Man torso rash guard. We're one step away from just having the fake muscles underneath. But yeah, jiu-jitsu culture is just bizarre because it's just full of people being like, hey, parada every day. The ground is my ocean and I'm a fish. What is it? The ground is an ocean and I'm a shark and most people can barely swim, blah, blah, blah. Mind you, I was doing this to Nakmoy nerds the other day because some guy was just going off about Georgia Petrosyan and how he actually lost to every Thai he fought. But the biased judging in Thailand was somehow letting him win. Just when you meet like a Thai elitist, you just have to be like, can you stop a double? Because they're always on about like, oh, kickboxing, don't even do the clinch. The real fighting is done in the plum. And you're like, well, if I grabbed your legs from the plum, you'd be on your back. That's how that works. So yeah, just threaten to ankle pick Boakau. If anyone brings him up, just be like, I can ankle pick Boakau. I'm like 20 kilos heavier than him. I can ankle pick him. My other favourite one is just like when people start talking about Teddy Riner, I go, no leg grabs. Best heavyweight in the age of no leg grabs. I could ankle pick Teddy Riner. But yes, jiu-jitsu is a weird cult. I think it's because people throw themselves into it and do love it. It sort of takes over your life, and you meet a lot of people through it because like one of the things of being an adult is when you're not forced to go to places with people like at school or college or when you've got a job when you're young, you're being forced into these social situations and you make friends that way. As an adult, if you've been in a job a while and you know all the people there, you don't meet a lot of new people, and jiu-jitsu is a great way to do that. So I think people just like try and make it into because you can only do so many roles a week without just dying, basically. So people try and make it into a bigger thing than it is. I've got to live the lifestyle. I've got to eat the acai, whatever it is. I've got to set up an Instagram just for my jiu-jitsu photos of me and my 4-stripe white belt doing the shaka. And who can blame you? It's like getting into music and then you also want to wear the band's t-shirts and get the band's posters and stuff like that. It's that for adults. Really, all of this can be avoided by just trying to be a well-rounded person and not getting too obsessed with things. He says, having obsessively covered MMA for, 10 years now? But if you want to see real culty, go to Gracie Barra, because they do have like a dojo kun, and there's a great shot of their like annual general meeting for like all Gracie Barra, and they got a projector up that says, Step 1, protect the red shield at all costs. And you're like, isn't that a conspiracy theory about the Rothschilds for weird anti-Semites? But yeah. The best jiu-jitsu culty thing that I've heard was Atos, which is an amazing gym. They produce a lot of world champions. They do also produce a lot of people who love winning on advantages. But they got like Kane and Duarte. They had I think the Mendez brothers came out of there. I mean, it's Andre Galvan's gym. It's one of the best gyms in the world, one of the best teams in the world. but they are all juiced to the tits, allegedly. And there was an account called like BJJ Steroids on Instagram, and whoever it was at the Worlds taking photos of people on the mat being like juiced to the tits. And apparently Andre Galvao and like a number of other, jacked BJJ black belt world class grapplers were walking through the stands trying to work out from the angle of the photos who BJJ Steroids Instagram was. It was a great year that year. Anyway, that'll do us for today. I'm going to be back on Wednesday, Thursday with the Boycast. We got some stuff to look forward to. We got a really stupid main event between two big, dumb, beefy fighters who are going to hopefully kick the shit out of each other, between Vettori and Costa. The return of Paulo Costa. It's been a while. And I'm hoping to finish my Petrosyan or Piotr. I suppose I've got to learn to say it before I do the narration, but it's never stopped me before. My Petrosyan Filthy Casuals Guide. I'm either going to get that done this week or next week. Finished, that is. If you want to sign up to the Patreon, get in on the Boycast, support the podcast, read all the articles, all right? Do that. If you want to send an email to the podcast, jackslackpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to see what I'm writing anytime, fightprimer.com. I am your boy, Jack Slack. Norma Dumont's thighs bless.